Let's talk wide receivers. Here are the top 5 we have on Adam's available list here. The number 1 guy is a true number 1 wide receiver in Randy Moss, Bernard Berrien, Jerry Porter, Dante Stallworth. Brian Johnson's a pretty good crop if you got Brian Johnson at number 5, and your sleeper is DJ Hackett. But guys, we got to talk Randy Moss right off the top here. I know there's been a little bit of debate here. Randy Moss has said he loves New England. He loves playing with Tom Brady. He's happy there. He wants to win the ring that he didn't get this season. Is he really a threat to go somewhere else as a true free agent?
For all the points that you just said, those are the reasons that he's not going anywhere. Those are the biggest reasons. He has already given up some money to play in New England last year. My guess is he'll do the same this year. Could he get more money elsewhere? Probably. But Randy Moss found a home in New England last season. He knew what it was like to play on a winner. This was after his time in Minnesota, after his time in Oakland. I think that he learned that winning has a price, and he's willing to pay it. And again, if another team were going to make a run at Randy Moss, his people would have come to them and said, hey, any interest? No conversation.
He's going to explode here unless he gets his point in here.
I just really think a lot of people are looking at this and saying, what would they do if they were Randy Moss? But let's look at Randy Moss. Even going into last year, Green Bay was the number 1 team, or I should say number 1 on the list for Randy Moss. He said that, hey, Brett wanted me there, the Packers didn't, so he went to the New England Patriots. He is going to hit the free agent market, even if there is a deal done with the Patriots in principle. If someone steps in at the 11th hour and blows him away with the money, 10 years in the National Football League, this will probably be his last blockbuster deal. He's going to pause and think, what do I do? Do I take the money, or do I go back with the Patriots, where we've already had a historical season and still didn't win the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl is not the guarantee. If they wave the money in front of him, a large portion of that will be guaranteed, and I think there might be just a small percentage of chance that he may not come back.
Be a great story, not going to happen. If Randy Moss were in his 20s and not his 30s, and another team could throw a wad of money at him, then maybe. But a team now, breaking it down, looking at it realistically, knows that Randy Moss is in the latter part of his career. You can't commit the money that it's going to take to get him out of there right now.
Are you kidding me? There's a market for Randy Moss. 23 touchdown receptions.
Greatest wide receiver year in history, arguably.
There is no doubt about it. He can put up big points, and he can stretch the field. There are other guys, though, also at the wide receiver position that the Patriots have to pay attention to because the production was so great. Randy Moss, yeah, he may be back, he may not. Dante Stallworth looks like he's going to be moving on. Jabbar Gaffney is a guy that had some numbers. So you're talking about prolific receivers. They better bring back Randy Moss because that's a lot of production walking out the door should those guys not come back.
For what it's worth, the New England Patriots are about the middle of the pack in terms of salary cap room. We have them unofficially at $14 million under the cap. Again, about middle of the pack in the NFL. Let's move on to the other guys that you have. Bernard Berrien, he's number 2 on your list. Is he ready to be a number 1 wide receiver in some offense?
Yeah, I think his money's going to come in about $7 million a year. Now, he's going to be paid like a number 1 wide receiver, which he sometimes performed like in Chicago and other times didn't. But when you look around the league and look at the teams that need wide receivers, San Francisco, Minnesota, Jacksonville, Buffalo, there are enough teams that need wide receivers, plus Chicago's trying to re-sign him, preventing him from hitting the free agent market. So there are a lot of teams that have a need at wide receiver. Bernard Berrien's going to get paid on Friday.
Brian Johnson is the other guy with the Arizona Cardinals, spent a lot of years in the shadows of Anquan Boldin and Larry Fitzgerald. And whenever one of those guys were injured and couldn't make it, he came in and put up tremendous numbers in the 5 years he's been a number 3 receiver out there, over 2,000 career receiving yards and over 200 receptions. Here's a guy that has some experience. He can make some plays. I look for him to get a really nice contract because he has the vertical speed to stretch the field and make big plays, but also the quickness to create yards after the catch. He's a dynamic player that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. The general managers have this guy high on their list.
At this time last year, we saw a wide receiver leave the Oakland Raiders and went on to thrive elsewhere.
That's right.
This year, we're going to see another wide receiver leave the Oakland Raiders, and I'm going to predict right now that Jerry Porter is going to go on and thrive again next season. My guess is it could be Buffalo, it could be Jacksonville, it'll be somebody in the AFC that recognizes the big playability that Jerry Porter has. Doesn't have the game-breaking speed, but he does make big plays.
All right. real quick on those teams that you mentioned there, San Francisco, Jacksonville, Minnesota, Buffalo, all of them in pretty good shape when it comes to salary cap. We have them unofficially at $25 million or more under the cap. That's pretty good money to spend.
Yeah, but hold on. They're way under the cap, but do they have the cash? That's the big difference, okay?
right.
You can have the salary cap space, but
And
you might not have the
Buffalo
cash
with their
to
issues
pay
that
those
they're-
guys.
Okay.
Well, I tell you what, I think there's a tight end on the list, and I think there are a lot of teams who could benefit from the presence of Algie Crumpler. That's right, the Falcons did release him, but here's a guy that can still make some big plays. He can run, had some nicks and some injuries in the 2007 season, but you got to know, to get out of Atlanta, well, that's like breaking out of jail right now because he's feeling very good about joining a team where he can be productive, they can win some games. Algie Crumpler can transform your offense. If I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, yeah, you have TJ and Chad to the outside. Carson Palmer, I think, would be salivating to have a player of Algie Crumpler's ability to stretch down the middle of that offense.
There are questions about his health, but he did pass the physical in Tampa,
That's right.
did pass the physical in Tennessee, and Algie Crumpler spent Thursday in Seattle, which has a real need for a tight end. He could be reunited with Jim Mora Jr. there.
And he feels maybe he's got a new lease on life after getting out of the Falcons situation, which he kind of got publicly disgruntled with towards the end of the year.